Support for Radio Friends comes from La Brunerie Financial, where they work to ensure a lifetime of financial security for people from all walks of life, from investment services to retirement plans. If you're looking for a trustworthy company that has the experience and knowledge to put your interests first, contact La Brunerie Financial, a community-based investment counseling firm since 1966. Learn more at labrunerie.com or by calling 573-449-5313. Good morning and welcome to Radio Friends. Monday, March the 4th, we have Scott Christianson back with us again today. You were on once before, about a month or so ago, and we talked about a professor at the university. And we talked about artificial intelligence. And what was the other?
Well, we talked about artificial intelligence and machine learning,
right?
And kind of how do we program these things so that they act in a way that's good for us,
right? Now, today you wanted to deal with how do you program morality into artificial intelligence or self-driving cars?
Yeah, I think it's a good example to think about when you think about the implications of this technology that is going to be performing decisions on its own that normally humans will do.
Right. And the first question I had for you when you mentioned that, I said, why would you need to program morality into a self-driving car?
Because when you're driving a car and something unexpected happens, such as a pedestrian walks out in front of you, you have to decide what you're going to do. So sometimes, hopefully, the car will be able to avoid the accident, but there may be situations where it may not be able to. So how do we want those cars to be programmed? Do we want them to sacrifice the occupant in order to save people that may be bystanders,
hit by the car?
Yeah, hit by the car. And if someone is jaywalking out in front of you, how do we want that to be reacted to if there is going to be somebody injured in something like that?
How do you? That almost sounds mind-boggling to me.
Right.
The car has to recognize that it is another person that's walking out there.
Right, and they can do that right now. They can recognize people and animals.
The cars now can recognize people and animals?
Yep. They can recognize that this is a cat or a dog or some other animal. Yeah, so they can, as well as the other cars around them.
And then you've got to program into the computer system whether you try to avoid that person making that decision or whether you hit that person to save the people in the car.
Right. So those are the types of...
I don't think I'd like to have to make a decision like that as far as programming.
Right. But I don't... That's why a number of places are exploring this. MIT did a very interesting study where they had a website called The Moral Machine. And you can still go to this website, and it asks you to pick these types of decisions.
What's the website?
It's if you just search for Moral Machine...
Okay. Google Moral Machine.
And you'll find this from MIT. And it runs through all these scenarios. I don't know if you remember, but way back when we went to college and we went to psychology class, they had all these ethical dilemmas. And it was usually involving something horrible, like there was a train going along and there was... if the train continued on its path, it would injure, some 5 people that were on the tracks, or if you pulled the switch, you could injure just this one person would die. So you had these moral dilemmas, right? And it was largely academic. But now we're talking about how do we program these machines that are going to be acting without a human driver to deal with these types of situations. And it's becoming very real.
It is. How far into the future are we going to be dealing with driverless cars?
Well, there's been a number of experiments with driverless cars, and they do seem to be better than the average driver.
Do you think we will accept it? I don't know if I could get in the car and sit over in the passenger side and the car just starts taking off and driving.
I think there's going to be a lot of barriers to the adoption that are not going to be technical. right? So they're going to be whether we feel comfortable with the car,
Right.
whether we trust the car. And I think part of that is knowing the decisions it's going to make.
So they do have driverless cars right now.
Yes.
Not for public consumption.
No, but they're being tested on the roads, especially in, I believe, Arizona. There's several tests. In California, there's several tests.
On the same roads that people
Yes.
are driving their automobiles?
Yes. Now, what they do in those situations is they will have a person that can take over, but they will allow the car to drive.
So somebody is actually sitting behind the steering wheel.
Right.
So if you're in California where they're doing it, you're not going to be passing up a car and there's nobody that's
Right, not
there's
yet.
nobody in that steering wheel.
Not yet, but they're driving hundreds of thousands of miles without any human control. And so it's just a matter of time.
How does it know where you want to go? Do you program it into a GPS
Exactly,
unit
exactly.
as to where you want to go? It's following GPS.
And it's also recognizing all the things around it, so it can recognize a stop sign or a yield sign or a
So it can
construction
recognize when
sign.
that stop sign is going to turn from yellow to red.
Well, yeah, it can recognize a yellow light and it will slow down. So it's probably a little bit better at recognizing those things than our distracted drivers are nowadays with their cell phones, right?
And is it programmed to not exceed the speed limit?
They can be programmed to not exceed the speed limit, but it turns out that owners don't like that kind of stuff, especially in like the Teslas, which allow for some autonomous driving. It turns out that humans like to decide what the speed is that they're going, and unfortunately, it's often faster than the speed limit.
But so you can override the computer.
At this time, the idea is if it was still your car, you would be able to direct that computer to do what you wanted it to do.
You could direct that computer to break the law.
Right.
The computer is not going to come back and say, "No, Scott, I am not going to."
But maybe that would be a good idea. Maybe for the public safety,
Right.
that would be a good idea.
You tell the computer, okay, the speed limit here is 75 or 70 miles an hour. Go 78. No, Scott, I am not going to go 78 miles an hour.
But those are the types of things that not only the makers of the cars, the programmers of the cars, but also as a society, we got to figure out, right?
Right,
So,
right.
do we want cars that will pass in no passing zones, or would we all be better off if we just had cars that would obey the
Probably
speed
be better
limits?
off if we take cars that will obey the rules.
Right.
And so it can also do. Can it do parallel parking?
Yes, and I believe
Oh my God.
I believe the Teslas now will do that, and I think Audi also has one that you can buy today that will do parallel parking for you.
All right.
So-
Well, we're out of time, Scott. But you need to come back again, and we continue talking about the artificial intelligence.
That sounds great. I'd love it.
Okay. All right, Scott. But I'm not going to go over the speed limit.
You're not going to go over the time limit?
You cannot go over the time limit either, Scott.
Okay, very
That's
good.
Hal from.
Sounds good, Paul.
We're out of time for today. Thank you, Scott Christianson. Pleasure having you here. Tomorrow, Hickman High Theater. If something you'd like to hear or see, drop me an email. That's pepperp@missouri.edu. And have yourself a nice day. Bye-bye.